let's talk about storage. Not a huge amount to talk about here. Well, maybe not actually. Maybe so. 256 gigabytes of storage, micro SD Express compatibility, and well, I think some interesting stuff happening with game cards and what they're calling game keys. Oliver, 256 gigs of storage. Let's start with that, though. It's okay, I guess. I guess we're just going to need to see how big the game installs are relative to like PS4 and Xbox One games, really.
Yeah.
But it's not amazing, is it? It's okay, I suppose.
I feel like we've had this problem with Switch 1 titles, though, for a long time, where, like, the upper tier of, like, your Doom Eternals or your LA Noirs are pushing 20, 30 gigabytes on a Switch. And obviously, the original Switch unit only has 32 gigabytes of built-in storage. The Switch OLED only has 64. It's not much. 256 in that world seems like a luxury comparatively. And at least you won't, hopefully you will never run into the situation where a game is too large to be installed on internal storage, no matter if you have it fully cleared, which is the situation we have right now on the Switch 1, that original Switch unit. So I think 256 gigabytes it is a little bit on the low side, but it's fine. And I think it's probably basically fine here because you have that expandability through SD Express, micro SD Express. Now, I was seeing the future a little bit a few days ago, and I ordered a 256 gigabyte micro SD Express, which is probably a good thing because I see now on Amazon Canada they're completely sold out, which is quite typical for these kinds of upgrades sometimes with console systems, at least for in my neck of the woods. In terms of its support for original micro SD cards, non-SD Express based micro SD cards, it seems like you have some support there, but only for transferring screenshots of an original Switch unit potentially. Just a couple things there. So it really is a micro SD Express built system. You have to have one of those cards in order to use it with your Switch 2 for any meaningful functionality.
The thing about the micro SD stuff is that this also gives us insight, I guess, into the storage speed, right? Because the SD Express cards are, those are kind of like, they're faster than old SATA SSDs and comparable to like a Gen 3 NVMe drive, so some of them at least. So we're looking at speeds that, because obviously the thing with that generation was that speeds needed to increase. The current consoles have fast SSDs in them. This does not seem to come close to actually matching them, but it does seem like it'll be fast enough. So it should still be a gigantic increase over what the Switch 1 had going on, which is cool. So I'm glad that SD Express is required.
Yeah, just quickly, I was looking on Amazon to see the prices, and it's like £80 for a 256 gig card, which is significant, shall we say, in terms of pricing there. Read speeds, I'm looking at a SanDisk micro SD Express, read speeds up to 880 megabytes per second. Write speeds 480 megabytes per second. That's pretty good specs. I guess basically the random access speeds are going to be interesting. They surely can't be SSD like, but I'm glad to be corrected there. 512 gig card from Lexar there, £150.
There's quite some variable I'm seeing, but it's always write up to or read up to, right? But I'm seeing like 650 megabyte per second, 480, and different ratings on these different XD Express cards. So
I think the speed is fine. Yeah, it's more the random access I'm a touch concerned about. But the Switch, as we understand it, Switch 2 does have a file decompression block on the SoC there for fast decompression of assets, something that the original Switch did not have. So that should actually, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the loading speeds are going to go there. But the signs are looking good from the technical perspective there.
Okay.
Should we move on, or did you have something else to say?
The game keys and game cards.
Of course,
This is really important because this initially shocked us all, and I've already seen posts online which has caused a lot of confusion. So I kind of wanted to lay this out here so people understand what this is and why it's being labeled this way. So, but first we got to look at the Switch 1. Switch 1 games came on those little cartridges, right? Switch 2 games also come on small cartridges, but they're red.
Okay.
So that's a difference. But Switch retail cases didn't always include a card. There were a lot of games that were shipped to stores where you'd see a big white block of text on the bottom saying that this was a digital only product. And if you bought that and opened it, inside you would find no card. It was literally just a case with a piece of paper in there and a code on the piece of paper. That's what this game keys thing is designed to replace. Rather than just enclosing a piece of paper with a code that could expire, what they have seemingly done is created a very cheap option where the publisher can choose to include a small card that's the same size as the normal Switch card, of course, but small in terms of storage space, where it's like a small little fast key, essentially. When you put that in, it then essentially downloads the game. So yeah. I don't know how that process will work, but it connects to the internet, downloads the game onto your system, and there you go. To play the game, you only have to do it at one-time internet connection. From there, you essentially just download the game. Sorry, you just put in the cartridge like a normal game card, and that acts as the license for playing the game. So then it behaves like a physical Switch game, even though you had to download it. So what makes this different from the download code is that it doesn't seem to attach anything to your account. It doesn't seem to rely on a code, but it also means that you could conceivably sell this product back.
Yep.
So
excellent.
That solves that problem of trading, reselling these types of Switch games that were sold in cases. And obviously I prefer the actual real game cards where the game is on the cart, and those are still here. The reason this is important, though, is that for some smaller developers and publishers especially, this offers a way to get into retail stores. So you take advantage of that space on a retail shelf, which Nintendo is very good at taking advantage of, without having to pony up for the cost of the full game card, which for small games especially, or, indie stuff, but even just like, I hate to say it, the shovelware stuff, and there's a lot of it, your BBs and Tinas, I don't know, maybe it's a good series, I don't know, but you see them all over here in Germany. But it's a way to get onto these shelves still without having to foot the cost of the actual cartridge. So there's no concern about the actual game cards going away, but they've come up with a better solution for the digital-only retail keys. The only thing that's weird about it is some of the pricing stuff, which we'll get to a little later.
Right. Yes, it does seem to be that prices are going up. Yes, which is not great, but I'm going to be curious to see how big some of the game download sizes are, which will be indicative of the amount of money they need to physically spend on making the cartridge.
Well, the original Switch had very small cartridges, remember? So that you could buy. I assume that the minimum cartridge size is probably going to be higher this time. And I don't know what the maximum size is, but one would assume it would be significantly larger than the max 64 gig cards for Switch. Yeah, and I think very few of games used that. It was extremely rare because it was very expensive.